Hello, everyone. This is Deborah Deras, spokesperson, author, speaker, and your host of Transformational Tuesday, right here on Deb TV, where it's dynamic, empowered, and bold. And guess what? We're going to boldly deal with a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and it's a topic of transmuting those emotions of fear, of anxiety, of frustration, of sadness, of loneliness, and even depression. I know that you see me out there as a motivational speaker and always with positive messages, but many of you may not know the depression that I went through after my divorce, and what a solace it was to me to know that I wasn't the only one that went through it. In fact, my beloved brother, spiritual brother, who is our special guest on our show today, went through a similar experience and wrote a book about it. But before I go into the interview with him, let me formally introduce David Matthew Brown. He is an inspiring speaker, yogi, writer, and author of 2 books, not just one: The Book of Light, The Heart Opening, called The Lightworker's Bible by the Dr. Pat Show, and his new book, which I'm reading right now, which is 90 Days of Heat, Freedom Through Moksha, based on his 90 days straight of hot yoga at Modo Yoga LA. Please help me welcome Mr. Dave Matthew Brown.
Hey, Deb. How are you?
I am fabulous. And just thinking about hot yoga is actually making me sweat. So if I start, I might have to powder my nose throughout the show just to keep it together. But the other reason I'm sweating is because I'm really, really so excited. You know, David isn't just an author. He isn't just a speaker. He isn't just a guest on our show. I consider him to be my spiritual brother. He's always been a mentor to me. He's always been a light in our spiritual community. And I just find his wisdom and the way that he communicates, both in his writing and his speaking, to be so profound that I know that everyone here is going to get a lot out of it. So welcome to our show, David, and thank you for being a part of it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is awesome.
So, and this is so fun to have you like in person live so people can see you. And sometimes you read a book and I think it's so cool to like get to know the author, and so then you can really feel that bond and that connection. But I know before you wrote the book, for a very long time, and you can tell the listeners how long, you were on a spiritual path, and I just wanted to get a little bit of a background of what led you to be on a spiritual path.
Sure, that's a good question. It started actually for me in 2004. The book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Have you heard of it?
Of course.
I was actually asked to facilitate The Power of Now here in Los Angeles. So I had a class. That was my first time. And all you do when you facilitate The Power of Now is you just play The Power of Now for an hour and a half to a group of people. And you don't ask any questions. You just take it all in. And I had somewhere around 50 to 60 people that showed up once a week, and that's all we did. And I was an actor, full-time actor, did a lot of commercials and voiceovers at the time. And I had pretty much everything that everybody would think that somebody would want in their life. I had met a wonderful woman in my life. My career was outstanding. I was working a ton. And I attended Agape International Spiritual Center. And can you hear
me? Mm-hmm, yes.
Oh. I attended Agape International Spiritual Center, and at one of the Sunday services, I saw that they were offering a foundations class. And something inside of me just was moved, and I said, maybe that's what I need, because I had all this stuff that people said that you need to be happy, and I wasn't happy. And I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't look at something in my life and go, oh, it's this or it's that. So that started my journey at Agape, and I ended up taking, as you know, all the classes to become a practitioner. My teachers at the time at Agape wanted me to be a practitioner. I did not. I showed up to the final test that they were giving to invited students of University of Transformation for the final practitionership, where they do they have a third person watching, and the practitioner goes through their test. And Stanley Bernard came out, one of the practitioners, dressed to the nines, slacks, gold watch, very regal. And I was a student who was asked to take part in this test, and I don't know what it was. I just went, I want to be like that guy. I want to be like Stanley. So that's what got me on my path. And from there, as you know, you work through all the stuff in class, but the real work is when the classes are over. And so when I graduated from Agape, I did have a lot of clients that would come and see me for one-on-one sessions, which led to me speaking at Unity Burbank, and I spoke on rotation there every first Sunday for 6 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that long.
And so from there, that started off my speaking. I did some speaking with you when you were first starting. We had the opportunity to speak together. You were kind enough to kind of get me involved in some other aspects other than spirituality, to speak in some groups, which is very nice of you. And from there, it just kind of led to me speaking around the globe. And I ended up last year in New Zealand speaking to 1,200 people, speaking to the Maori. And the Maori tattooed my back. And the tattoo they gave me was a mark of a new beginning. So that was fantastic. So my journey has just been one like your journey, right? Where I share a lot of stories. I tell a lot of jokes. And I just share my life with people. And if they glean something from it, wonderful. If not, wonderful. I just love to talk. I'm Italian and I'm Irish, so I tend to fight with myself a lot. And so I like to manja and I like to talk.
That's so funny. Before I go to my next scheduled question, I have a question.
Right.
I have a question. I told him to be flexible. That's yoga.
I love it. Go for it. I'm with you.
So, you talked about, and I had a similar experience where, I got all the T's and the I's crossed. I got the house. I got the husband. I got, the dream career, everything I wanted. And yet there was not only not happiness, but there was almost a sense of loneliness and almost a sense of despair. And that's why I asked you what brought you on a spiritual path, because I think it was Reverend Michael say, religion is for people that don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people that have been to hell and don't want to stay there.
I love that, yeah.
So, yeah, and I know that there's been a lot of, and so I want to talk about that experience with just not having happiness and how that led you to yoga and how that led you to write your book.
Right. You know what happened was once you start doing the spiritual work, you really start to become aware of truth, a truth that has no conditions. And when that moment happens, a lot of things start to fall away. And so what happened was, in that period of marriage, we were starting to become, distant, and a lot of things were starting to unfold rather quickly. And we had a beautiful daughter whom we both love. And I remember once the divorce happened, that's where the work began, because all the things that I had learned at Agape, all my tools, my tool belt, like they call it, meditation, prayer, everything, frankly, went out the door. And for the next 3 years, I was pretty much in the dark night of the soul. I literally had no work. If it did come in, it was just barely enough to get by. Nothing was even remotely going any way, shape, or form that you could call good. So what's fascinating about that dark period in my life, the dark night of the soul, was not only was it kind of relenting, and it was really dark, because you really get to know who your friends are in a divorce. Mm-hmm. Most friends take sides. Most friends leave because they can't deal with it. Family members get involved who have no idea what's going on. Everybody's trying to offer opinions and blame and complain. So, you know, and then you have a daughter. I have a daughter on top of that. So you're trying to keep things sensible around her so that she's not picking up that vibe, but what can you do? So during that time, I was gifted through meditation as I continued to stick with meditation. I was challenged with whether there was really a God or not. I was challenged with my own beliefs. So everything was in my face, everything. And on top of that, I was also dealing with, I got mugged. I had family members from the other side of the family that were threatening me, that were taunting me. So I went through, I mean, if you're going to go through it, you might as well just go through it all out. And so, but the Book of Light, which is about who we are, came out in that period.
Oh.
And so what was fascinating about that was here I am in the darkest part of my life, and I was in meditation one day, and I heard, what is light? And I would have just gone to the Google and Googled what is light and found out about all the other philosophies. But to be quite honest with you, when you're in the darkest period of your life, you don't really care anymore about other people's opinions. You don't really care about a lot of things. So I sat with that, and I ran to my computer, and I popped open a Word doc, and I wrote verbatim the last chapter of that book. And the last chapter of that book, a good friend of mine who just passed away, who was my Sacred Circle teacher, Ron Trotman, said, when you read the Book of Light, it's like sitting around with a shaman around a campfire and learning about who we are. And that last chapter of the Book of Light is essentially how we all started off in the darkness, and how right now in our society, it breaks down how we're moving through, and we're all opening up to the light that we are. And it literally breaks it down. It's crazy, crazy insightful. And that's all to God. I was literally just transcribing it at the time. I was in the darkness and open enough, right, to move with that. You know, I also had, in that period, thoughts of suicide. I had strong feelings of ending my life. I had strong feelings of feeling really lonely, like you brought up. And I remember calling up a couple of friends that I knew who did prayer. And the fascinating thing about when you call somebody up for prayer is when they pray for you without trying to change or fix you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a powerful experience to be a part of. It's powerful when you're around people that don't try to change or fix you, but can see you as you really are without any judgment. And, excuse me. So I went through that period, and the Book of Light came forward. And so I went and got this thing called Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And I went through that workshop like many of us have at Agape, and I just felt this overwhelming sense of relief. And I was driving up La Brea from Wilshire, and I had this great sense of relief that I hadn't had in years. And I had a blog. Someone asked me to start a blog on Patheos. So I had this spiritual blog that I was writing on my own experiences and sharing my insights. And so I looked to my right, and there was Moksha Yoga. They had a thing, $40, unlimited hot yoga for the month. I hadn't done yoga for about a year and a half, and I had never done hot yoga. And so I said, I have a blog. Why don't I keep myself accountable? And I will blog about my experience on the yoga mat and how it affects my life outside a yoga class as a single dad, as a parent, as a man. And I will be authentic with my experience. I'm not going to hold stuff out. And so I talked to the yoga studio, Emily, and she said, David, this is awesome. She was like, I grew up with a single dad who was amazing. Right on the 30 days. I wanted to do 30 straight days of hot yoga. And so that's how.
Let's pause for a second, because for people that don't know, what hot yoga is and what this kind of commitment is, it's a really, really big thing. We have such similar stories. I mean, when I was getting a divorce, also after my practitioner work, and I learned all the spiritual truths, and I'm like, I made it, I graduated. And one thing you said that's really profound that I think people need to hear, that I want to reiterate, is that when you go through this, sometimes the structures of your life fall away. I think Reverend Michael says pain pushes until vision pulls, and sometimes things have to break down to have that breakthrough. So we both had that experience, right? And when things break through and if there's a new way of being in the world, a new paradigm, the ego that doesn't know that there's a new paradigm just feels stuck in the dark. And I, like you, that's why reading your book to me is so healing, because having all the spiritual training and all the counseling that I have, and you having all the spiritual training, and then I think, who am I to be depressed or even not wanting to be here? And to knowing, and for you to say that out loud, and to know that I'm not alone, and I'm sure other people that hear that, I just want to honor you for that, and how courageous it is, and how liberating it is for so many people just to know that we are not alone. So I just want to acknowledge your willingness to do that, really.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it just popped in my head was, I remember a night, I think it was 1 month before this all started, before I went through the forgiveness and all that stuff. I sat in my living room. I was alone. I had the TV on. I have a cat named Nima. I went into the kitchen. I found the sharpest knife I could find, and I put that knife next to my sofa, and I just thought, this would be a good time to go, right? And just then, my cat Nima jumped up on my lap and started purring, and loud. Like, it wasn't just a purr, it was like a loud purr, and I completely forgot. After a while, I saw the knife, and I completely forgot what that knife was there for. So I put it away. And everything started to shift on that moment. It was like my final end of everything. So life has a way of supporting you, even with a cat on your lap purring, to remind you that you're loved, no matter how hard it is. It's a lot of noise sometimes in our head. Someone told me a great mantra. I'll share this with everybody. Here is some noise, and I'm okay. Right? And we all have a lot of noise in our head, and especially sometimes when you want to play the part of a spiritual person, or the part of a business person, or the part of a politician, or whatever the part is that you're playing. We identify with that as that's who we are sometimes, and we forget that here's some noise, and I'm okay.
Right, and you said something also that was very, very important. So if you guys are taking notes, I'm like the teacher now. Number one, I'm a retired professor, so I always have to put out, because this could be on the final exam. So number one, I would write down forgiveness. Number two that David said that was also super profound was releasing judgment. Because when you mentioned, when there's noise, and to be the observer of it and not to judge it, it's easier said than done. And reading The Power of Now and reading, like you said, all those philosophers, to me, it didn't help me to transmute the depression. Nothing that I read could help me to transmute the depression. It actually made me more depressed, because cognitively, I knew that everything was the now and everything was inside of me and everything was peace. But physically, I felt I don't even know, bankrupt. I felt empty. And the only thing that could shift me out of that was hot yoga. And so we're going to get into that, because it, being 108 degrees, being so physically challenging and uncomfortable, my mind actually had to shut up. My ego, that's not my ego, could not even talk, because I thought I was melting on the floor in these positions. And it gave me, for those 90 minutes, just this beautiful feeling of peace that I couldn't have, you know. And so I want you to talk about whoever, by the way, who's viewed. Somebody came on the line. I didn't get a chance to shut up people that came on the line. If you could just mute your line because there's a little bit of feedback, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point before I start talking about the journey of hot yoga. One of the realizations that I had with forgiveness that has been really profound for me was when you truly forgive, you let go of self-hate.
Mm.
You truly let go of self-hate.
Tweet it. That's a tweetable. When you forgive,
you can tweet it.
What is your Twitter?
It's at 90 Days of Heat.
Okay, at 90 Days of Heat, hashtag Transformational Tuesday, hashtag.
Do it. Yeah, so that just occurred to me when you were talking about forgiveness because, as you know, Reverend Michael brought up, thank you for giving me this, right? So you want me to talk about the yoga journey?
Yeah. No. And I just want to complete on that. When I didn't take the Colin Tipping Radical Forgiveness, but I did the worksheet. And I got the book. And I got the book, and I did somebody else's forgiveness because one of the ways out of a dark night is through. And I thought I could just somehow go around. There was another side way. There was a detour I could take. I didn't know I actually had to go through the darkness to come out the other side. And the idea of forgiveness is realizing that you're actually grateful for getting that experience. That forgiveness is, thank you for giving me this experience so that I can learn, grow, and expand. And I found for myself that the more I resisted it, the more darker it became.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yoga is such a good metaphor for it. So let's talk about you started off with 30 days of practice, and tell them a little bit about some of the lessons you write about in your book.
Well, my sense is that almost every day is a lesson, right? Almost every day something kind of comes through. The major through line of the book is to breathe. Breathing is so important. Joseph Campbell has a thing in mythology where he talks about the hero has to go into the fire to burn away everything that doesn't serve him, right? The metaphor of hot yoga is you're in the fire, right? Whether I knew it consciously or unconsciously, I put myself in the fire. And I said, okay, look, it's going to be 103 degrees in the room. I'm going to put myself on a mat where I'm sweating, where my mind is going 1,000 miles per hour, where I just have people that have, amazing practices and bodies and life, whatever around me. And then we're going to have a teacher in the room that is like reminding us to breathe through the pose. Okay? So I'll let you in on this insight that occurred. So I'm really big into nature. I love trees. I use it every time I speak with people. Okay? So when you look at a tree, is a tree willfully expressing itself, or is the tree allowing the will to express through it? So in yoga, when I first started, I was willfully expressing myself, willfully trying to do like warrior pose, right, warrior pose and mountain pose, and all these things, and align my body and look perfect, and it had to be a certain way, and look at this person over here, and look with the hear it, like you hear the mind. And as I started to connect deeply with here, I started to understand, I think it was around day 60. So for those first 60 days, what occurred to me was it was a mind-body experience. On day 60, that all turned around and it became a spirit mind-body experience. And every pose became a metaphor within itself. Every pose became the metaphor of my life. Corpse pose at the end of my practice was no longer about me laying down so I could sleep because I had a busy day. Corpse pose was me surrendering my day, surrendering my life, surrendering it all to something bigger than myself. It was a metaphor for dying to today and just give me one more chance to go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning. And so I began to understand that through the practice of these 90 days, which I ended up doing 100 straight days.
Ooh, why isn't it called 100 Days of Heat, man?
Yeah, because I think 90 feels a little bit more accessible to people. And the extra 10, I'll explain to you that. But, you know, I had a couple of realizations that I'll share with everybody here because it's a good reminder for myself and for all of us. When you go to bed tonight, you don't know if you're going to wake up tomorrow. You don't. I mean, you could try to tell me, oh, I know. We just don't. And so with that, if you right now can observe just your in-breath going in through your nasal passages and letting the out-breath go, right, the inspiration coming in and the expiration of life going out, what you'll begin to understand that yoga teaches us, which is beautiful, is that right where you are, there's tension. And that should bring you to a place of alertness. The tension is you breathe in life and you breathe out death. And in between there is love. And we have poets and philosophers and writers and teachers and everybody trying to define life, death, and love. And no one can do it. That's how immense we are. I mean, that's how beautiful we are. That right where you are right now, you are being inspired with life, and then you're giving it all up. So there's a great alertness that comes with that. That now you no longer take anything for granted. And when we talk about gratefulness, it's not gratefulness. Some people say, I'm grateful in the hopes, unconsciously, of getting more. Life itself is namaste. Life itself is the great teacher. Life itself is, you're grateful for it because you don't know when you breathe out if a breath will ever come back to you. That's how fragile and strong we all are at the same time. It's so beautiful that you don't need makeup to show off your beauty because your inward beauty is so immaculate, it's enough. And so right here, you're enough. Like right now, Deb, you're shining. You look like Mother Mary. You're radiating.
It's the light in my front of my face.
but you see how you preface what I say, right? So take that in. Because that life is giving you life and life is expressing back to you, right?
Yes.
And so on day 26, this will help out why I did 100 days. Emily, the owner of the studio, who becomes my big inspiration for everything that happens in my life from here on out. My life is indebted to her. She shared with me a story in the lobby after class one day that she was going to raise $20,000 in 30 days for this event for the yoga studio. One of her friends said, why don't you raise 50? And she said, I can't raise $50,000. And she said, well, that scares you. Maybe you should do it. So she said, okay. And she raised $59,000. Right? So I'm on day 26, and she goes, tells me this story, and she goes, David, I think you could do 90. And I went, what? She goes, I think you could do 90 straight days of hot yoga. At the time, I'm blogging on my experience every day, and I'm gaining readers. So I'm gaining like thousands of people that are following me, and in my mind, they're just waiting for me to collapse and fall over, right? So that's how I got into the 90, was because of Emily, who challenged me to go outside my comfort zone and go for 90. And then on day 90, I made a commitment to myself. I just said, you know, I'm here. I might as well just go for 100, and then I stopped at 100 straight days.
And for those of you that have never done it, just so that they can know the immensity.
Yeah.
Like someone talking about a marathon, never having run a marathon. Like, it's not just him doing 90 days of yoga. This is hot yoga. Hot yoga is specifically, right, the Bikram, the 26 positions, right? You're doing the same position.
No, it's moksha. So there's not, it's not Bikram. It's different. They don't have, it's just yoga, but it's hot yoga. So they don't have a consistent 26 positions.
Oh, okay.
So moksha is in Canada. And Moksha has 55 studios, and they have 10 in America. And because of a trademark with some studios here, they had to change the name to Moto. So Moksha is yoga. It's hot yoga, but there's no, like, it's not like Starbucks yoga where there's that 26 poses.
Got it. But it's 90 minutes, isn't it?
90 minutes. Some classes, like when you do the yin yang,
Mm-hmm.
right, that might be a little bit longer. An hour and 45 minutes, hour 15 minutes. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, good. So you have some diversity. Because I don't do Bikram either. I do Hot 8. And what I love about it is that there's, you know, there's ballet one day, there's power one day, there's yin one day.
I love it.
You know, there's a hybrid, a fusion. So, but one of the things that you said that I wanted to share with people, when I first started doing yoga, it really was just because I needed something to shock myself out of it, and I tried all different yoga studios, and the only way that I could get out of being in a depressed state was in the heat. And what I realized, and this is one of my favorite expressions, Einstein says it, is that we cannot solve a problem from the consciousness that created it. So I could not get out of the darkness into the light by analyzing it, by thinking about it. I couldn't, this is why it's the dark night of the soul. I couldn't pray about it. I couldn't meditate through it. None of the things that I normally could do was working. I had to go through it. And you had mentioning something about the pose, and I really want to emphasize this because this is my philosophy of life, of success with ease and grace, that I don't think people get. People think that you have to push, like you were saying, or pull to make things happen. And what yoga has taught me, and what I hear it teaching you, it's like when I tried to do like a very challenging pose to me, and the more I pushed, I couldn't do it. But when I just said, I'm so tired, I'm just going to lean back, and all of a sudden I would be in that pose because I had just let go and I surrendered to my breath, and my breath took me to that position. And so many times in life, and this is what I'm getting from reading in your book. His book, like, it's so great. You guys have to get it. 90 Days of Heat, barnesandnoble.com. So he writes every day his experience, and every day it's not just like I went to yoga, I laid on the mat. It's like a profound spiritual experience that's going to transform your life with the mat. So for me, taking that yoga experience of, instead of pushing to make things happen in life, what if I just accepted that things were going to happen, they were going to happen, and that divine order is in play, so I'm just going to trust the universe as opposed to fighting the universe or being angry at the universe or having self-hatred towards myself because things weren't going the way I thought they were. And your book has just been reinforcing these lessons and actually giving me my lessons in a concrete way that I have never thought about before.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. And when you talk about letting the breath take over, it reminds me of grace. You know, we are in a society that is moving from the imbalances of the masculine overriding the feminine.
Exactly.
Right? Both in the physical male and the physical female. So let's not act like they're both, you know. So we're all discovering that inward balance, that feminine and masculine balance, and the breath is so strong and beautiful that it debunks the mind anyways. And it's fascinating that you brought up what you brought up, because I wrote an article the other day, and it had something like 60,000 people read it, 600 shares, and like 2,800 likes, and it was on letting go. And so I thought this may help some of the people that are watching this, because I discovered it when I was doing yoga, and I had this ongoing conflict with myself when I was actually studying at Agape, and I couldn't express it or articulate it until this moment. So I had always learned that your thoughts become feelings, change your thoughts, change your life.
Right.
Right.
With Louise A.
Right. Look, it's fantastic. It's a wonderful philosophy. It may help out people. For myself, I'm just going to talk about myself. What I realized was that it was almost a willful act. That I was in denial that I was thinking what I was thinking, and then I was trying to change it. And I changed my thought, and before I knew it, within 2 days, it would all fall apart again, and I'd be fighting my thoughts again, and I'd be like, this is crazy. So this may help out anybody right now that is going through, I think I saw in your post that you put on Facebook, any type of anger, depression, negative feelings, anything really that is unlike a sense of lightness. Because we are naturally positive. It's not that, that we get so caught up with, I have to be positive. But your very nature is positivity. Is it? Yeah.
Because I read something to the contrary that our brain was hardwired to go toward fear.
Beautiful. So now you're going to teach your brain how to follow the heart. So your natural state is lightness. When you're feeling heavy, a burden on you, you're shooting on yourself, right? You're doubting, you're complaining. It's heavy. It's a heavy feeling. So everybody where you are right now, just become aware of your breath. And if in this moment you are experiencing any type of feelings, fantastic. So what I discovered in yoga while you're focusing on your breath is I was beginning to feel sensations and feelings coming up on my mat. And those sensations and feelings had thoughts attached to them. Thoughts that had nothing to do with even the past 10 years. I mean, thoughts from like years and years ago. So I decided to try out a hypothesis, and you could try this out in your life. If it works, wonderful. If it doesn't, wonderful. But this is, like I said, helped close to 60,000 people that keep sharing this article. Be aware of any sensations or feelings that are with you right now. Anything. You might have a sensation in your body. That's okay. Tingle, whatever. Just be aware of it. And while you're aware of that sensation or feeling, give up trying to change it or fix it. Just be aware of it. So essentially, it's almost like you're holding the feeling or sensation in your arms as it is, without changing or fixing it, and just feel it. That's all. So you're aware of the feeling or sensation, you're aware of the feeling of it, and you're not changing or fixing it. If it's a big feeling, it may last for a good amount of time. It's okay. Be with it. What you'll notice is that as you're with the feeling, sooner or later it's just going to drop away. And you're going to feel lighter. That's how you know this is working. The other way that you know that this is working is because the brain, or as you brought up earlier, the ego will jump in and go, well, this is ridiculous. This certainly isn't working. This is awful. I mean, who does this? You're not, like, it gets really aggressive. And then you're like, oh, this is working. Once you are aware of the feeling or sensation and it drops away, all those thoughts connected to that feeling or sensation drop away too. This is profound. This is healing. Because then what you'll notice is then every time that feeling comes, you're no longer scared of it. You're aware of it. And the charge is lessened. And then before you know it, you never have to experience those thoughts or situations or people connected to it ever again. And you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to change something.
Wait, so back up, because there's a lot of information. So what you were saying is, a lot of us were taught, thoughts create your emotions, create your behavior, create your results. Change your thoughts, change your life. And what you're saying is that connect with your emotions, observe it without trying to fix it, and that will make it go away?
Yeah, you'll feel it, right? Let's say anger. You're dealing with anger. Anger flies in, right?
So not like a physical sensation. You're talking about emotions.
So, yeah, emotions, feelings, it's sensations. They're all energy, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're just aware of it, aware of that energy, that sensation that's with you, you're just aware of it. You'll notice that just by being aware of it. So I'll try to simplify it. When we talk about awareness, we're talking about attention. What we're really talking about from a metaphysical, esoteric level is your awareness is light. The reason why awareness is light is because it has no conditions. When you bring an unconditional thing to a condition, the condition itself falls away.
Yeah,
That's
let's
right.
zoom in. Instead of zooming out and esoteric, let's zoom in like I'm pissed off and I'm angry.
Right. Good.
So I'm going to pay attention to the anger, but I'm not going to try to make that anger go away.
You're not going to judge it or fix it or change it. Like, you're not going to go, oh my God, I'm angry, and then on top of that go, oh my God, and I'm spiritual, and I'm a teacher, and I'm a minister, and and then it explodes. You're a creative being. So this is creativity coming through you, right? And so what you'll notice is that once you're with that anger and you don't deny it, you don't put it away, you don't try to change it or fix it or be something that you're not, you just accept it. What happens is it falls away, and then your body, which is naturally light, positive, will feel lighter. And then what's dramatic is that your inner innate self, your wisdom, will give you insight onto why that happened in your life. Because you're relaxed. That's why it's important when you do the arts, right? Acting, dancing, directing, whatever it is, however you create in your life. It's important for us to breathe. Why? Because when you're breathing moment by moment, you're not thinking. But we have moments that our thinking pulls us away. Okay? The thinking is pulled away because we haven't been taught to be with our feelings, our sensations, right? Exactly. So what happens is the feeling has already happened. The energy is already here. The thing that's taking you away from the feeling is your thoughts. The thoughts are almost like a defense mechanism. So they're like, Deborah, no. Deborah, stop. You can't go there. We can't deal with it. But you, Deborah, have knowledge now, and so you say to yourself, here's some noise. Okay. And now you're with the feeling. Most people, that feeling, once you begin to understand that you can be with your feelings and emotions as they are, without putting a story on it, without trying to change it or fix it, and make it a game, you're just playing. We're just playing. Like, don't make it something. Oh, good, now I've got another technique. Just look, we're just playing. Your life is a play. Here comes some anger, you're just going to play. Now, you've tried expressing the anger at somebody, that maybe didn't work. You tried to siphon your anger, that didn't work. Right? We've tried all different tools and techniques. We've tried to beat pillows with our anger, like all sorts of things. You've tried addictions and avoiding. Right. And the reason for that is because we haven't been taught to be with it. Because when you resist it, the moment you resist the feeling, you're going to go do something ridiculous. Right? You're going to make that feeling that comes up, it's going to make you powerless. And you're going to feel like you have no control in your life, and you can't handle anything. Your life is going all over the place. Oh, but this drink will help it. Right? Or the food will help it, or this will help it. But what it does is it just suppresses it just a little bit. Right? And none of the things that I mentioned, drinking, eating, those aren't bad. If you do that in moderation, let's all relax for a second, right? I know that in a spiritual realm, everybody's really hooked on different things. Well, they're not spiritual because they don't do this. Look. Settle in. We're here to be with our energy. And if the energy at the time is emotional, be with it. If it's a feeling, be with it. If it's a sensation, be with it. Because it's a call. Right? It's a call. There's an insight that's going to come out of that experience that you're not seeing until you relax and go, I can handle this. And just going back to the yoga practice, that's what I found was so freeing about yoga, is because feelings that I never gave permission to come up, they came up in what seemed like a safe space. And I remember I was telling you when I was reading all the books trying to get out of the dark night, there was one teacher that really, really helped me, and his name is Panache Desai. I'm sure you know him. And his book, The Soul Signature. And he said, there's nothing wrong with being angry. In fact, his book is all about that. There's nothing wrong with being upset. In fact,
emotion is energy in motion.
Yes.
And when you don't let it out, it becomes repressed and you can get depressed. And
Right.
so what I hear you saying is in alignment with that, with, you know, allowing the feelings to have a play space. Not like we have to work it through and it's another thing, but
Right.
to play with it and to allow it to coexist with it rather than to avoid it.
Yes, if we look at ourselves as energy managers.
Ooh, I like that. High five. That's a good one.
We're energy managers. We're managing our energy. So where do you put your energy, right? Well, look, sometimes with that energy you're angry or you're upset. Why is that wrong? Who in the world said that's wrong, right? It reminds me of when you're in practice, when you're in class. The teachers, no matter what yoga practice you're doing, no matter where you're at, I guarantee you at some point the teacher's going to look at the group, wherever you are, and it's going to say, breathe. Why? Because it's better to be present with where you're at. It's easier to deal with than deny where you're at and try to go somewhere else, right? Here's a good example for some of you that may have body image stuff. Day 7 of my journey, I was in class, and like I mentioned earlier, I was an actor, so I understand how light works. And in the yoga room, it was a sunlight roof that was backlit, so the light was coming from behind. And I was at the mirror. And I hadn't taken my shirt off yet in class because I was scared of the way that I looked. So I called the yoga teacher over, Caroline, and I said, Caroline, come here. And she said, yes, David? And I go, I'm going to take my shirt off now. And she said, just do it. And I went, okay, but I'm letting you know that there's a light from behind me, and I'm going to really glow because I have porcelain skin. I'm not tan. And so she laughed and she goes, David, just do it. I went, okay, I'm going to do it now. And once I got over it, that was it, right? I got over my self-image. I got over how I looked because I found myself comparing myself to people in the room that were like beautifully tanned and whatever. And I was able to be with it and say, okay, here I am. Can't change or fix this. Spirit's telling me right now to take my shirt off. And no one cared, right? Nobody cared. And so throughout yoga, throughout our life, throughout your day, for those of you that don't want to do hot yoga, don't want to do yoga, maybe you hike, if you can find just 2 minutes in your day to breathe into your heart and breathe out of your heart. Mm-hmm. Just breathe into your heart and out of your heart. It's just heart breathing. And just give yourself the space to be present here. And you'll discover that you'll gain confidence, more and more confidence that it's okay to be here. Most of us are frightened to be here because of our emotions. And we've never been taught how to deal with that type of energy. But let me be an example for you, and let Deb be an example for you, and we'll go back to that earlier mantra, right? Here's some noise and I'm okay. You can handle your emotions. That's really what we're here to do. Once you can handle your emotions, you can handle the world. The world is your oyster. And you'll look around and you'll see everybody is freaked out because of their own emotions. So they're throwing it at people, they're suppressing it, they're running. It reminds me of that story in Forrest Gump, right? When he's running in the desert for 3 years, and he looks at the group and he goes, I'm going to stop running now. I'm tired. And all the people are used to running, and they're like, but what are we going to do now? And he just starts walking back home. That's exactly what we're doing here. That's exactly what the 90 Days of Heat is about. It's about walking you back home, but using myself as the example. And I'm saying.
And what you said was, that I thought was kind of an eye-opening thing for me, is that, and walking us back home is going back into the light. Because if you think about the beginning, you talked about you were in the darkness, and then we inhale life, we exhale death, and then what we really are is light. So it's allowing us, the breath, to release And it's also metaphorically releasing the parts of ourselves that are dying, our old limiting beliefs, the parts of us that we're no longer attached to. So that my whole goal of ultimately, at first it was just to stop my brain and to de-stress. Then it was to look sexy like those other hot girls. And then my goal became to experience as much periods of peace as possible, to elongate. So it wasn't just peace during the shavasana at the end of yoga class, or it wasn't just peace during portions of yoga class, but that I could take that energetic of peace into my world and be a magnet and an emanator of that, because I already knew I could be an emanator of light. I already knew I could be an emanator of love. But to me, it was to really, and it wasn't really to give back necessarily. It was really a personal journey. But as you know, whatever we get, we give away, and it just expands. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that if people don't want to do yoga, that you can create this space of light for yourself by simply connecting with the breath in your run, in your hike, in your washing the dishes, and your mopping the floor.
Right, and yeah, here's a good example of that. When my daughter was 5 years old, her and her buddy Jay got in a little bit of a dispute in my hallway.
Oh.
Right? He's 5, she's 5, and so I got down on my knees and I said, all right, you two, we're going to breathe into our hearts. And they just thought it was the funniest thing. They started giggling. So they did it, and then they went out and played, and then down the hall you hear them fighting again, and then they stop. And then Harper comes running and she goes, Dad, guess what? And I went, what? And she goes, we started to have we started to fight again, and then we went into heart breathing and we both stopped. And we decided to, and she goes, and we decided to play with each other. So the importance of being present is not for the space that we give ourselves. It allows space for somebody else to be themselves. And can you imagine if all of us continually started doing that for each other, giving each other space, the dialogue would change, the story in our country would change. And how did that start? It started with the moment that each one of us decided to be present with ourselves, to accept our emotions the way they are, to accept us the way that they are, and to accept our friends and family the way they are without trying to change or fix people.
Can we just take 1 minute to do that?
Sure.
I just wanted people to experience it. By the way, we only have 10 minutes left. So, like really 1 minute, but I do want people to experience what you mean by breathing from the heart. Okay.
Sure, just close your eyes and just be aware of your breath. Your breath going into your nose and out of your nose. And now if you're a visual person, you could visualize light. If you're not, that's okay. Now picture that, let's use light, we'll take a green light. Picture the green light as your breath. And allow that green light, see that green light going into your heart, your physical heart. Now breathe the green light out of your heart. And what you'll notice is that as you're breathing into your heart and out of your heart, you'll discover a rhythm. And all of a sudden you have a natural rhythm, and the flow of your breath comes into your heart and out of your heart. Now, when you do this practice on your own, just continue to breathe into your heart and out of your heart. When you do this practice on your own, the next level is to listen to your breath coming into your heart. You'll get quiet enough to hear your breath, and guess what? Your breath sounds like the ocean. It will sound like a So when you crave the ocean in your life, maybe what you're really craving is your breath. So your breath is the same rhythm as the ocean. And when I teach heart breathing around the globe to different groups, within a minute or so, it gets you right out of your head, puts you right here, right? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Thank you. Namaste. I was like getting all zenned out. I need to come back into my body to finish this Transformational Tuesday. Oh gosh, I have like 25,000 more questions, but okay. So let me ask two. So tell me, just because, you and I haven't talked in a while, I haven't seen you in a while, but you definitely, to me, seem even more loving and bright and light than the last time that I've seen you. So how has this experience of your 100 Days of Yoga and writing this book changed you?
Well, you know what? Someone brought up to me at the book signing at the Grove out here in Los Angeles. They brought that same question. And I said, this is what changed me. I did 100 straight days of hot yoga. If I can do that, I can do anything. And in that, I can handle my emotions. And because I can handle my emotions, I can do anything. Now I can discern things better.
Yes. Yeah. I felt that when I did a marathon. I'm like, if I could run 26.2 miles, I can literally, yes, because it allows you to realize that so much of what we think we can't do are just perceptions of our own limitations that are not real. And the truth is, capital T, that we can do anything and that anything is possible. And it opens up the space for that. And so for people that want to connect with you, for people that want to continue and read your blogs and read your book and find out more about where you're speaking, how can they stay connected with you?
The easiest thing is I literally am on Facebook a ton. I love it. So you can just go to Facebook, just write my name. My name is David Matthew Brown. Put a 3 at the end of it. Also, you can go on my page for my book, which is 90 Days of Heat on Facebook. And then, like I said, follow me on Twitter at 90 Days of Heat, Instagram 90 Days of Heat. So it's pretty easy from that vantage point. You can check the Unity Burbank site. I speak there on occasion now, but I've been so busy that I might come back soon. So
you bring the heat, David. You bring the heat.
I am single. I'm a single dad.
Oh, what? Put it out there.
I know, right?
I just came back from Miami, and the Miami is all about the heat. And in Miami, everybody says super. So I was telling people, I'm super single. So you could say you're super single and ready to mingle. Okay. Yeah. Don't get my inner Jewish matchmaker started.
I love it.
So there's just so much more that I want to talk about, but I'll definitely bring you back as another guest on the show if you will come back, because there's so many concepts in your book that we could explore and go deeper in.
Sure.
But like I said, his book is funny. His book is easy to read. His book it's like some other books you read and you feel like, oh, I already know this. I read this before. Not this book. This book, you're going to get learnings and teachings at such a core level that it's really going to move your soul. And those are the kind of books that I love to read. In fact, this is my Hawaii reading. I'm going to Hawaii next week.
I love it.
I'm on day 6 of your book. And so I was going to read one a day so it would inspire me for my yoga practice and just in life. So I just want to thank everybody that tuned in and everyone that will be watching this. My name is Deborah Deras, and the intention for Transformational Tuesday is to bring you amazing change agents and healers like David Matthew Brown that are not just about changing themselves, but are about changing the world and giving you tools and strategies to be able to really experience that peace that is your absolute birthright. That nobody, my intention for my life is that no one has to suffer unnecessarily. Yes, there's pain in our life that we go through, but let's gather the lessons. Let's learn so that we can be beneficial presence to others around us. So let's all say thank you to David. Everybody say thank you. Send him energy, send him love, send his book to the bestseller list.
Yes.
To barnesandnoble.com. I already, he already gave me the book and I ordered it anyway, just because I want to support him and because I'm old school. I like to have the book in my hands and feel it. And so, it just, Barnes & Noble just mailed it right to my house, no shipping or anything. So I really encourage you all to get it. It's 90 Days of Heat. Follow him on Facebook. And please, I invite you to comment about other topics that you would like and other areas of challenge, because all of my Transformational Tuesdays are for you. So make sure you write your comments below, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Deb TV, Dynamic, Empowered, and Bold. I've created it for you. So many people say, oh, there's nothing on TV, or it's all negative. You don't have to watch TV. You can tune in to your own tube, and guess who's in the tube? You are in the tube with me. So I'm so happy that YouTube has given me a platform, Deb TV, to be able to bring wonderful programming like Transformational Tuesday to you. So I want to wish everyone an amazing evening, an amazing day, and remember, as always, with the power of synergy, anything is possible. Bye.